Everybody knows the best part about keeping an aquarium is the maintenance. All right, maybe not, but you still got to do it. In this video, we're going to go through a complete tank cleaning, 80% water change, gravel vac, glass cleaning, all of it. Let's go. So before we start, guys, if you haven't been here already, my name is Kev from KaveManAquatics.com. Make sure you go check out that website. And on this channel, we like to talk about all topics of the aquarium hobby that get straight to the point so you can get back to enjoying your beautiful fish. So right off the top, I want to talk to you guys about an 80% water change and why some people feel like that's too big. Well, in my tank, with an overstocked African cichlid tank, these many fish, there's so many nitrates in this tank at the end of the week that I've got to do an 80% water change. I'm going to show you guys the nitrate levels of my tank before I start the water change. Keep in mind that the week before I did an 80% water change, and these are my levels 1 week later. I'm also going to show you guys the pH levels of my tank before starting the water change, and then about an hour or two after the water change, I'm going to take another pH test and show you guys that my pH levels have not varied and it's very safe for the fish. So I'm going to start with my nitrate test, guys. I want to show you guys exactly where my levels are before I even start the water change. Make sure you guys are doing this nitrate test correctly. You really got to shake these bottles well. Follow the instructions on the test kit just as it's shown. Of course, the camera decides to unfocus there, but it's all right. You can still see it's 10 drops for the first bottle. You want to give this second bottle a really good shake. You want to even hit it against your hands and make sure you get any gunk stuck to the bottom of that bottle. Mix it up really well. And again, it's another 10 drops of the second bottle. For the nitrate test, you want to give it a really good shake it for about a minute. And then you want to also let it sit for about 5 minutes. You can see right now it's a little bit orangey, which is closer to 20 parts per million, but let's give it some time and we'll see what it really comes out. I'm also going to show you guys the high range pH test. I want you to see what my pH levels are before I even start the water change. Five drops and a good shake should do it. Now take a look at the chart. My pH levels look like they're right smack on 8.0. That's the color that I see. It's kind of hard with this API test kit to determine pH levels because those colors are almost all the same. The top 3-4 colors look almost identical. But this is right at about 8.0. And my nitrates, after letting it sit for a little bit, you can see that it's about 40 parts per million, somewhere between 40 and 80. These are what my nitrate levels are every week before my water changes. So now that I showed you guys that, let's get on with the water change. But I want to show you guys a nice little treat that I give my guys just before the water change. Check it out. So during the water change, I turn off all my filters anyway, but for this treat specifically, you want to have all the filters off because you don't want the filters sucking up this food. I give my guys a nice treat of jumbo krill right before doing a water change. The reason being is that jumbo krill can get really messy once they break it all apart, and that's gonna leave your tank super dirty. So I like to give it to them right before a water change, right before I'm about to clean the tank anyway. Now the way I do it is I take the portion that I'm gonna feed them, I separate it in halves, and I chop up one half of it to make the jumbo pieces a little bit smaller so the smaller guys can make sure they get some as well. First I throw in the big pieces and all the big guys are able to get at them real quick and swallow them whole. And then after a few minutes, I throw in the chopped up pieces so that it spreads amongst the tank and all the little guys are able to get some as well. Now take a look at the tank. You see how dirty the tank looks already because the pieces of this jumbo krill just end up going everywhere, all over the tank. If the filters were on, the filters would suck most of this food right into them, and that'd be a total waste. Also, when everybody does get some and they got their fill, check out how much of it just floats on the top of the tank. That's no good. Look at that big boy Venusus with a mouthful, just munching away. But check out the surface of the water. You see all the excess food just sitting there? That's what we're gonna get out. So since we're doing a full tank cleaning, I'm gonna go ahead and also sand vac, which means I gotta remove all my decor. I normally vacuum the sand about once every 2 weeks. Check out my rock, guys. These aren't real rocks. These are just hollow pieces of foam or cover. They got nothing inside, but they look very real. After a few more minutes, check out my nitrate test again, and it's gotten even redder, closer to 80 parts per million. This is the reason why these big water changes are necessary in an African cichlid, overstocked African cichlid tank. Now, before I start the sand vac, I want to show you guys exactly how I get the siphon going inside my Python tube. There are two ways. The Python does have a valve that you can open and close, but I'm also going to show you how to do it if you didn't have that valve at all. Check it out. Before we get into that, if you're enjoying the video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. Go ahead, smash it right now. It's going to help the video out a ton and show it to more people just like you that need this information. Go ahead, hit it. So you want to get your tube in the water with the open end facing up so that all the air gets taken out of the tube. Fill the tube up with water and then pull it back out of your tank. Let it drain, let the gravity drain the water down your tube. Just before the tube is completely empty, you want to close your valve. This is going to lock the siphon inside your tube. Then put the tube back into the tank, open side up again. Let the air come out of it, fill it with water, flip it upside down so the tube is now pointing down, and then unlock your valve. And there you go, you got a great siphon going already. And once you got your siphon going, take your time and get to work. Now that I'm trying to siphon the other end of the tank and the bracket on top is actually stopping me, is in my way, I'm gonna pull the tube out. But when you pull your tube out of the water, you wanna make sure that you don't lose that siphon. And the way you're gonna do it, if you don't have that valve, is just by simply kinking your hose. You kink the hose, it traps the siphon, you pull the tube out with the open side up, and then you put the tube back into your tank, open side up, flip it upside down so it's the open side down now, and then release your kink, and you still got your siphon going. Now, after you guys have vacuumed the entire surface of your sand, try using this little technique to get some of that detritus that found its way underneath the surface of the sand. This will help you make sure that you get as much detritus out of your tank as possible. What you want to do is dig the tube into the sand, and the sand will get sucked up the tube, and then you want to lock your valve or kink your hose, and the sand will drop right back out of the tube again. Once all the sand is out of your tube, open up your valve or unkink your hose, and your siphon will keep going again. This will unlock or release some of the detritus that's been trapped underneath inside your sand. It is very important to occasionally vacuum your sand or your gravel and get any uneaten food, detritus, fish waste that's stuck inside your gravel, inside your substrate. You gotta get it out of there. Those will accumulate and contribute to the nitrates in your tank, making your water quality very poor for your fish. Even if you have crystal clear water and it may look like your water's nice and clean, if those nitrate levels are increased, you're gonna be harming your fish. Now it's time to get this water out of here. I'm using my Vivison 2600 gallon per hour pump. It's linked in the description below. This pump gets water out of here so fast that the camera died while it was draining the tank, and by the time I put a new battery in it, the water was already gone. What you see me doing here is trying to catch any more free floating poop that survived the vacuum. Either that or these guys decided to poop right now during a water change. Kind of like when it's bedtime for the kids and they have to poop right now. Perfect timing. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get all my decor back in before filling up the tank. But before we fill up the tank, there's something very important that we all must do. Now, I don't know what level you are watching this. You could be a beginner, you could be a veteran, but I've got to reiterate this in every video that I do about water changes. You must dechlorinate your tap water before putting it inside your tank. You can either fill up a bucket of tap water and put your dechlorinator in the bucket and let it sit for a while to make sure that it dechlorinates, and then add that bucket to your tank. Or in my case, that I got a really big tank, that might take me like 3 days to do it that way. So in my case, I add the dechlorinator right into the tank just before adding the water, which is perfectly safe for the fish. So I've always used Prime as my dechlorinator, but since I've got this big tank now, I switched over to Safe. Safe is exactly the same thing, except it's in powder form, and you can use a lot less to dechlorinate a big tank. I always add my Malawi buffer at this point as well, just to make sure that there is enough buffer in this water to maintain the pH when adding the new water. Now we're ready to fill the tank with water. And filling the tank with water takes a lot longer than draining the tank. Why? Because even though I got a strong pump, it can only pump as fast as the water comes out of my tap, unfortunately. While the tank is filling up with water, I'm gonna go ahead and clean my canister as well. I have 3 FX6 on this tank. 2 of them have mechanical, bio, and chemical in them, and they get cleaned every 4 months. But I alternate every 2 months, which means 2 months I clean one, the other 2 months I clean the other. The third filter has only mechanical media in it. It's for straight polishing, and I clean that once every month. If you want to check out exactly how I clean my FX6, I'll put a card right here for you. Now that the tank is full, I turn my filters back on and my wave maker, and you can see how much surface agitation I'm getting here. So guys, let me tell you why a big 80% water change is absolutely fine to do. Some people believe that their beneficial bacteria live inside their water column, and if you do big water changes, you're going to eliminate a lot of your beneficial bacteria. That's absolutely not true. That's not how it works. Your beneficial bacteria grow on your surfaces inside your tank. They grow on your biomedia inside your filter. They grow on your substrate. They grow on your glass. They grow on the surfaces, not inside the water column. So taking out a lot of water has nothing to do with your beneficial bacteria. The other reason why people are scared of big water changes is stressing their fish. Well, I didn't start with an 80% water change. I gradually worked my way up to an 80% water change. And while doing so, I kept an eye on my fish and I made sure that no one was overly stressed. At this point, I know that they can handle a big water change. So if the fish aren't overly stressed, you don't have to worry about beneficial bacteria, then why not get as much nitrates out of your tank as possible? Especially when you got an overstocked African cichlid tank like mine, the nitrate buildup is going to be super quick, so you got to get it out with big water changes. I suggest that if you have hardy fish, up your water change game by about 10% each week. Check your fish out, see how they handle it. If they're doing okay, give it like 2 more weeks and go another 10% till you get to the point where you can do big water changes. That way, all that new water that's going into your tank is full of minerals, full of vitamins, full of essential nutrients, and your fish are gonna love it. Now, the other thing besides dechlorinating your water that you gotta make sure of before adding new water into your tank is you gotta make sure that new water's temperature matches the temperature inside your tank. A fluctuation in temperature is gonna stress your fish out. And if you're doing a big water change like this, and the new water is at a different temperature than the tank water's temp, that's gonna cause stress. So the way I do it, believe it or not, I got a $2 handheld thermometer that I just put under the tap. I adjust the hot and cold till I get the temperature that I want, and then I shoot it to the tank. So it's been about 2 hours, guys, since the water change, and you can see how much clearer the water looks now 2 hours later. I hope you didn't forget about our little pH experiment. Just to remind you guys, here is the pH before starting the water change, sitting right at around 8.0. And now, 2 hours after the water change, I'm gonna go ahead and do another pH test. High range pH test kit, give it a good shake. Get your drops into the test tube. And let's see what we got. So the one on the right is the test that I just did, and the one on the left is the previous test. I'm gonna hook them both up on the color chart here. Try to get some focus. And as you can see, the one on the right is just a hint lighter than the one on the left. But after a few minutes, they both actually come out to be the exact same color. We're sitting right at 8.0. So as you can see, even though I took out 80% of the water, because my entire substrate is aragonite sand, that aragonite does such a good job at buffering the water that only 2 hours after the water change, the pH levels are stable and steady right where they were before the water change. I hope the video gives you guys a little more confidence in trying bigger water changes. Just remember, it all depends on what your fish can handle. Don't jump straight to an 80% water change. Get there gradually with time. And if you spotted one of my guys behind me that you really like, then make sure you watch this video up here. It's going to give you a bunch of information on African cichlids. And if you're a beginner in the hobby just starting off, then watch this playlist right here. It's going to be super beneficial for you guys. See ya on the next one.